With recent talk and hype around the metaverse, you might have ideas of your own that you'd like to build. However, you might think this is something very difficult to do and would require a lot of experience in programming or game development. But today I'm going to show you probably the easiest and fastest way to build your own metaverse. So to start, we're going to create an index.html file, and this is pretty much all we're going to be using throughout this tutorial. And you can use any text editor that you may have to edit this file. I'm going to be using VS Code, but anything else will work. The tool we're going to be using is called A-Frame, but don't worry, you won't need to download or install anything to use this tool. All you need to do is add some text to the file that we created. A-Frame is a very simple to use framework for building 3D, AR, and VR experiences on the web. And we can just head on to Google, search for A-Frame. You see I already have this, and it should be the very first link you see. So once we get to the main page in A-Frame, we're going to want to go to Get Started. And here you're going to see some information about A-Frame. You can feel free to read into this to learn more, but all we're going to be using for this tutorial is this text right here, this HTML text. So we can copy this and we'll add it into our file that we created. We can save this file. And now to test it out, we can go, so wherever you created your file in, whatever directory, you're just going to want to go into it. You can double click and it should open in any default browser. I'm going to open mine with Google Chrome. And you should see this scene. You see a cube, a sphere, and a cylinder, which is your basic, just like A-Frame Hello World app. Yeah, so this looks cool, but it doesn't really look like a metaverse. Next, what we're gonna want to add is an environment, and luckily there's already a component that's built to work with A-Frame for building environments easily. What you're gonna want to do is go back to Google, type in A-Frame environment, and it should be the very first link you see to GitHub. And if not, all these links will be in the description of this video. So if you scroll down, you can see the different environments this component has. And if you scroll further down and you see these presets, this is the name of all the environments. For this tutorial, I'm going to just be using the forest. But all we really need from here is just to copy this script. We'll add the script into our file right under this A-frame one. And now you can go ahead and remove all of this. Just make sure you leave both tags racing. But we can remove this. Next, what we're going to want to do is add an entity in here. So in order to use this component, the way it works is you type in environment, and then we type in preset colon, and then we set it to whatever environment, that list of environments. Like I said, I'm going to be using forest, semicolon, save that. And if you go back to your index.html file on the browser, you refresh it, and you should see your environment. You can see around this, use your arrow keys to move around. Yeah, pretty cool. Starting to look more like a metaverse now. So now that we have our environment, we're going to want to add some 3D objects to it just to make it look cooler. The recommended file type for these 3D objects by A-Frame are .gotf. I was able to find a cool website that you can find in the description, which has a lot of free assets that you can use. And the scene that I'm trying to make is kind of like a GTA scene. You can see these houses, you have your Cybertruck and a helicopter. So I got all of these assets from here, so we're just going to start adding them. And how we add them is if you click on one, you're redirected to a page where you can download the model or just copy a direct link to it, which they're hosted like in a CDN. So for this tutorial, the only way we can work with it is to copy the direct link. Downloading the model would require additional steps to our project to be able to use this. So yeah, we're just gonna for now just copy it. So the recommended way to add assets in A-Frame is to create an assets component. And then inside this component, you'll want to add asset items. And what we do, we just say asset item, and we give it an ID. So this would be my Cybertruck. and then we just provide the source, which is that link that we copied from the website. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do this for all the objects that I'm using. If you go to models and you go to categories, you can find all the ones that I use here in vehicles and architecture. So I'm gonna just go ahead and add the asset items for all the objects that I'm gonna use since I'm trying to build this right here. So I'm just go ahead and do that, but they're all gonna be the same. They're just gonna have different IDs. I actually already have them copied, and there you go. I have all my assets here. So these assets are just gonna be loaded. They're not gonna be. You can have reference to these assets, but they're not gonna actually be in our scene. To get them in our scene, we have to create another entity component similar to the environment and reference that asset. So we'll say, since these are GLTF models, we gotta say GLTF model and set this equal to whatever asset you're referencing. So for instance, house. If you were to save this and try it out, it's not gonna work. The reason is because of the type of models that we're using. They require a some type of Draco decoder path. I took the liberty of figuring it out and finding the property that we needed to add to our A scene for these models to work. You can copy it from my GitHub account. So we'll need to add this GOTF model property, which adds a Draco decoder path and a mesh hop decoder path. And again, some assets that you'll find online might not need this, but for these, you do need this decoder. So I went ahead and added it. But if you want to see where I got this information from, if you go back to the A-frame and on this side menu you click on GOTF model, then scroll down to scene properties. It talks about how you can add the decoder, and I'm just pretty much, I got all the information and links that you saw, all the paths from here. But yeah, just to keep it simple, you can just get it from my GitHub, add it here, and now everything should work. So yeah, the first thing we're adding is a house, and if I save this now and I go back to my index.html and refresh, we don't see nothing, but if we back up, yeah, we see this tiny little house. Another thing, it's right on top of us, so we can't see. So something I want to do is just push this house all the way back and make it a bit bigger. And we can do this by adding some more properties. So first, let's change the size. We can use a property called scale, which takes in 3 inputs for your width, height, and length. And I'm just based on playing with it, I know that I want it to be this size, so I'll add a 9 as my length, width, and height. Save this, go back to here, refresh, and it's still right on top of us, but now you can see that it's a bigger house if you back out. So now the next thing we want to do is push it back. For this, we can set the position of this model, position property, and again it takes in 3 values, which would be your x, y, and z coordinate on the scene. So for x, just pretty much moving it right or left. I don't want it to go anywhere. Your y up and down, I don't need it to go up and down. It's fine the way it is, but I do want it to go back. So my z, I would type in -15. Now if I save this, remember the first, when I loaded it, it was right on top of us. Now, yeah, now it's pushed back. It's pushed back to 15. And now I have some other houses that, as you saw on the scene, I already added the reference to these assets. Now I just need to use them, so I can do the same thing. Copy this 2 more times because I have 2 more houses I want to add. And I want all of them to be pushed back, but just playing with the scale and what size I want them to be, I saw that I need these to be a size 7 because the 9 just looks a little too big. And just feel free to play around, try different sizes, whatever works for you. This is what worked for me. But one thing I do need to change is right now, since they're all in the same x and y coordinate, well, the x coordinate what matters. They're all on top of each other. But I want them to be a house on the right and to the left of this first house. I need to change my x position. So first, I'll set this to the left by setting it to -14, and I can set this to the right by setting it to 14. If I save this and refresh, we can see, oh, yeah, so it's the same house to the right and to the left of it. And again, the way I was able to figure this out is just playing with it. So just try it out. This your X positions just kind of moves things either to the right or the left based on the negative or positives that you give. But one thing I forgot to change is actually the reference. So I want this to be house 2, which would be my left house. Let me save this. Yep, so the house on the left because it's a negative. And then I want house 3 to be the house on the right. House 3, save this. Go back to my file, refresh. And yeah, now we have my house on the right and my house on the left, different houses. Next, what I want to add to my metaverse is my Cybertruck. So I want to put it right in this garage. I can do add another entity, the same thing. Entity, GLTF model I'm referencing. This time it's going to be Cybertruck. Cybertruck. And for now, I just want the position to be 0, 0. I want it to be -15. If I save this, go back to my scene, refresh. We don't see my Cybertruck, but that's because I pushed it. It should be somewhere. Yeah, so if you see here, it's inside of the house, and I don't want it to be that. I want it to be moved inside here. So what I need to do is just move it to the right, which would be a positive. Let's say we just move it 3. Save this. Go back, refresh. And now we see our Cybertruck inside our garage. That looks cool. Last thing we want to add is our helicopter. So I'll just copy this, hit enter, and now instead of Cybertruck, we're going to be using the helicopter. Based on the position of our helicopter. Now this time, I don't want it to be on the ground, so I want it to be higher up. So I would have to change my Y coordinate. The first time I'm actually changing it for anything. We can say maybe 5, and we'll just leave it at 3 and see what this looks like. So now my helicopter should be floating in the air somewhere. Yeah. So you see it's coming in. But let's say I kind of want to change the rotation of my helicopter. So instead of it facing forward, I want it to be facing the side, um, coming in like kind of further up here. Another property you can use is called rotation. And like the other property that takes in 3 values as well, I'm guessing the X, Y, and Z axis. For our X, we don't want it to turn anything, so we just put 0. But our Y, we do want it to turn 90 degrees, and then our Z, we don't want it to turn anyway. So we save this, go back, refresh, and now our helicopter is turning that way. I kind of wanted it to be turning facing this other way, so it'd be the opposite way. So I would just need to change this to -90. So refresh. Yeah. So now it's turning the way that I want it to look. So cool. Now you can move around. You can see your Cybertruck, and you can see and play around with this new metaverse you created. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can view this metaverse in your actual VR device. So that is the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.